Hi, Mariana.
Morning.
Morning. How was Beyonce?
Sorry?
How was Beyonce?
Amazing, as always.
Where was it? In Tottenham?
Tottenham, yeah.
Oh, when are you flying back to Greece?
Tomorrow morning.
Back
I
to
think.
work, or are you on holiday?
Uh, well, I'm on holiday. I mean, from teaching, but I still have the other things. So yeah.
Fantastic.
How
Okay.
are you? Hi, Laura.
Hi,
Yeah,
you okay?
good. Have you met Laura before, Mariana?
Yeah,
In the
we've met.
CMT weekends, I guess, right?
Uh,
It was in China.
when- like 2 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, I think that was right. Yeah. Yeah,
Ah,
we went
you
to
worked in
that.
Cheltenham, Mariana.
Sorry?
You was working in Cheltenham.
No, for the induction.
Ah, okay.
I don't
Oh,
remember when.
right, I see. Yeah. That makes sense. Hi, Pia Rugman. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Probably not. Sayun, hello. Mazin, hi. Hello, Teniola. Hopefully, we won't just have a sea of black boxes with microphones switched off.
Maybe
Yes, hello, good morning,
they're
Joe. Good morning,
strangers.
everyone.
Hello,
In
good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Is it
Hello.
possible, guys, to put our cameras on? No problem if you're in the bath or whatever, but it's always handy to see people's faces, of course. All right, so guys, we'll just wait a second for everyone to. Hi,
Hello.
Morning, hi, nice to meet you all.
morning. How do I pronounce your name, Pia? Is it
Yeah,
Pia?
you've done it.
Or...
You've done it right, Pia.
Oh, perfect. Because
All good.
Rugman is your surname, I suppose.
Yeah.
Ah, right. Okay, Pia. Oh, fantastic. Where do you live, Pia? Are you in Italy or
No. I'm in rugby.
you're in Rugby?
Wild. I know. I'm almost a veteran with my surname.
Oh, wow. It's because your
Yeah.
kitchen setup looks very sort of Italian Spanish to me, having the pans
Oh,
kind of
thank
hanging.
you. Thank you.
Oh, wow. So are you teaching in rugby, Pia?
Yes, yeah. So I teach at a local school in rugby now, and we finish. Well, I'll finish in 2 weeks' time. Yeah.
Ah, fantastic. You've got a really strict, horrible boss at rugby called Mariana, who's actually in the call here. Her name is Central Studies.
Oh,
Oh, love that.
No,
I'm
no,
going to be in rugby
Mariana's.
too, by the way, so that's good.
Oh, fantastic. Well, yeah, guys,
Yeah.
Mariana's lovely. She'll be your DOS in rugby.
Morning.
guys.
So yeah. All right, guys, let's get started because it's Saturday, and yeah, I think that's good enough reason, right? So, if it's okay, guys, I am recording this just for teachers who couldn't attend. Hope that's okay with everybody. The idea today is that obviously we're going to try to keep it brief, but it'd be quite nice to get as much participation as possible, particularly in the CPD session, because I think a really important part of CPD is collaboration and reflection. And if no one's contributing, we're not really going to get very much out of it. So let me share my screen with you all. Can you see my screen, guys? Yeah. Okay, beautiful. So today I just wanted to go through a bit of classroom management with everyone, a little bit about the differentiation that we're going to need in our classes if we're going to deliver our programs successfully. A bit of a reflective practice exercise. Laura is going to give you a bit of a heads up about the projects that we're going to be doing and a little bit about the tech. I know some of you, this is your first experience with us. Some of you are returners, but we've changed a little bit of the infrastructure and the protocols for things like arrivals and ceremonies. So we'll give you a bit of a session on what to expect, and then finally a Q&A. Okay? So here, some of you will recognize this slide from a couple of weeks ago. Our logic behind the CPD sessions we'll be doing this summer are really to improve the quality of teaching, as you see in the quote in the yellow, um, to support retention and morale. I don't know if any of you have ever worked in a school where the staff room is just grim, where everyone's moaning, everyone's energy's down, everything's negative, and I feel like it really impacts everyone. So I think CPD is really good at combating that. It boosts student achievement, of course. Um, it also helps us to reflect on what we're doing and actually get better at our jobs. Um, and also, it just helps us to learn, reminds us why we enjoy teaching. So yeah, these five factors are our motivation really throughout the summer. Now, moving on to classroom management, if you could all have a look and just let me know which color quote for you best defines classroom management. So have a read and just call out what color you think is the best one. Or maybe you think they're all crap. That's a fine answer as well.
I think they're all valid in their own way. It's about sort of self-regulation in the first one, taking ownership of their learning in the second, and then just being a responsive teacher in the third.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sort of suspected that everyone would say it's all three of them are valid.
For
Yeah,
me, I'd say like the blue and red. I'm between the blue and red in my classes usually. Like, yeah, avoiding
yeah.
things before they happen, and then obviously teaching self-discipline as well. Yeah.
Well, I actually think that's a good point you've made there, Mazin, because our courses are only 2 weeks, and some of them are actually only 1 week. So it's really important that we establish a nice atmosphere as quickly as possible because even if there are behavioral issues for just 2 or 3 days, in a course where students only have 10 days, 30% of their learning has been diminished. So, yeah, being proactive and reactive are actually really important in our context, more so than in like a state school where you've got like a year-long round program. Um, Now, I've broken down some typical issues that we have in our classrooms, which you see here. Okay. Um, Disruptive talking, especially the Italians and the Spanish students, right? They're very, well, they're just very Italian and very Spanish. Off-task behavior, um, particularly, daydreaming, phones, defiance or refusal to follow instructions, lateness, absence, and then bullying or exclusion. Obviously, we don't ever really have serious bullying issues in our courses, but for sure, there's a bit of cultural bias and a bit of the, tomfoolery you
Bit of
expect
cheekiness,
between
maybe
students.
cheekiness. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, Mazin?
A bit of cheekiness, maybe like cheekiness, like taunting, maybe just like friendly banter, and so on, maybe.
Exactly, exactly. But I think it's really clear that we all have defined strategies of how we react to these issues. So, what I thought we could do, if everyone could just, if you can't remember these 6 issues, if you can take a screenshot, I'm just going to put you into breakout rooms and give you 3 or 4 minutes to just talk about how you would do or how you would deal, sorry, with these issues. Okay. Obviously, there's no right or wrong answer. Well, I mean, physically slapping the children is obviously a wrong answer, but other than that, there's no sort of wrong or right. Okay. So let me just put you into breakout rooms. More. Okay. So let's make 4 breakout rooms. Okay, guys. So I'll just give you 3 or 4 minutes, okay?
We're not that many, Joe, to make four. I make
You
three.
think
Or
we'll go three? Okay, let's go
yeah,
three.
we'll be in pairs if you make four.
That would be, you can see I'm not a maths teacher. All right, so let's put you into three breakout rooms, and I'll give you 5 minutes, okay? So there you go.
Is just oh.
Oh, thanks, Joe, for joining.
I
So,
think trying to, I don't know, prevent the issue before it starts is obviously the best way to approach. I think just trying to maintain engagement, and I think it being a summer school can kind of bode well in our favour. I think I'll probably go for the approach where, I don't know, high energy, and I don't know, just kind of stay friends with them a bit, so you know that you're not there just to tell them off all the time, but also just say, look guys, please can we kind of focus, and if we get it done, then yeah, it's just going to make everyone's life easier.
Yes, can we just get it done?
Yeah,
I like that. Like for me, I think it depends on like if a student is given an answer and someone else is talking, I think I react differently to that situation as opposed to if they're talking when I'm talking as well. I think it depends. I don't think there's like a black and white answer for me. I think it
No.
depends on different situations. But
Down, yeah. So that's my way of doing.
cool.
Joe? Yeah, I think like sometimes even like looking at them for 2 or 3 seconds helps, and then they stop.
Yeah, eye contact. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Yeah,
While you're talking to the whole
definitely.
class, and you just stare at them for 2 seconds, then they stop, and you go on.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Good. Good point.
Cool.
How about
Off-task
Timiole?
behavior.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to ask me? Well, you guys, honestly, it's either if they are saying something that is productive, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's a good point. Let's talk about it together. But then obviously if it is disruptive talking and it's not relevant, honestly, I would just say, could you just stop talking, please? I'm the sort of person where like I'm a super fun teacher. And so when I'm very serious, you know you've messed up.
Yeah.
So if
Yes,
I'm
like
like,
the broken up
can you just
promise,
stop
that
talking?
bonds.
Like, can you just stop? Like, please just stop. They will stop because like I'm just
Yep.
dead
Makes
serious.
sense.
And then we just continue. We do what we do.
Good.
I just ask politely. Honestly, that works most of the time. If it then continues, like you said, second time, third time, then it becomes a bit more of an issue. But that rarely happens. And then if it is happening, you
Prolongs.
need to
Yeah.
then find out why. What is it that they're talking about? Because sometimes if students are if they're talking a lot, it will be because something has happened and they feel that it's so important that they have to talk about it now. So that might just be like, okay, what's going on? And they might be like, oh, our friend is something, something, and we're trying to reach her. Then you're like, ah, okay, let's try and deal with this. But if it's just because they're chatting about their weekend or something, yeah, no, no, no. Okay,
Yeah.
off-task
Or their
behavior.
favorite toy. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, exactly. So daydreaming using phones. What do you think?
Yes. Daydreaming, yes. So in that case, immediately I'll go to that student and sort of like ask them a question, try and make them involved in the classroom, ask them a question, part of the topic, or just like get them again and just sort of having the desk. And then next time is just, oh, yeah, you know, I'll ask them a question, like take part in this. It could be an easy question like, okay, like whatever the topic is, the easiest question that is there, I can just sort of ask them a question to bring them back in. Using that in a classroom, but obviously If it's allowed as part of the school, I don't know, cultural regulation, they're not just like, they're like, just like, put it away, put it away, put it away, like this, and just from far away.
I mean, what we did last year in rugby was that phones weren't allowed in class. Every teacher had their phone box by the door, and they would leave their phones there so they wouldn't use them.
Oh wow. Okay, there we are. Bullying, I think if it got bad enough, I'd report it to someone else. Obviously, if it wasn't, yeah, I think if it really started escalating or I felt it was at a right level, I'd kind of say, look, can we have a chat after class? And basically, yeah, kind of pull them to the side and address it on a personal level.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you? How would you deal with bullying?
For me, it's just like zero. I just don't tolerate it at all.
Same. No
Yeah.
tolerance.
So yeah, I think I would probably have a chat with it if soon as it's recognized, because obviously as teachers we can't watch everything. I do recognize that, but I think as soon as it is recognized, have a talk, find out what's going on,
Yeah.
and then potentially either to the DOS or centre manager.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe.
Okay, so let's start with disruptive talking. Does anyone want to start? What was their group talking about? How do we deal with disruptive talking?
Oh, Mo had a brilliant one. I think she should share it.
Let's
Sorry,
go,
Mo.
Mo.
Sorry.
So let's go. Well, I said trying to keep up engagement before that kind of happens is obviously ideal, but I think I don't know, it's quite beneficial. It bodes well in our favour that it's a summer school because obviously maybe a bit more energy, kind of fun, engaging. But I think my approach is kind of, I don't know, stay almost friends with them on a bit of a level and just say, look, guys, we're here to learn. And I know we keep it fun and it's interesting, but we also, let's just kind of do the work as well. Yeah.
She said, just get it done.
Just get it done. Let's just get it done.
No drama. Just get it done. That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think what you said there, Mo, links into something similar that I heard Teniola talking
Mm.
about, making things more student-centered and actually having what you might call a negotiated syllabus,
Mm.
whereby, if students are talking about something that they're fascinated with, it is all right to stop what you're doing and say, very well, guys, if we're so obsessed that Miguel's got a new girlfriend, let's discuss Miguel's girlfriend. Miguel, tell us all about your girlfriend. And if there's meaningful interaction taking place, yeah, sometimes we can engage with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other strategies, guys, for dealing with this? Yeah, Pia?
Yeah, we just said sort of not keep on top of them, but just keep going with your own pace. Maybe if there is off-task behavior or talking, the pace might be wrong. You might need to adapt and change, pull something out of the arsenal, change the task, move on, make sure things are understood. You just sometimes talking or off-task behaviors just because they're not quite comprehending the task or what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that I've noticed with some of our teachers, particularly in the second classes in the day when you're a bit tired and your patience bar isn't quite as generous as it was in the morning, let's say. Yeah, these behaviors often are because of affective factors, disinterest or frustration because something's too difficult. So, yeah, whilst also we can use things like dagger eyes and, just, okay, can you just please be quiet? Thank you. But also reflecting on why they're talking and why they're not interested, definitely, yeah. let's jump to bullying or exclusion. Obviously, these are the sort of more serious end of the spectrum. What strategies would we have here?
We didn't get to talk about this, but one thing I will mention about exclusion. One thing I really liked from the training that you did in rugby in April was the equity sticks. And I found that was really helpful when it came to exclusion because sometimes what you have is if you have different students from different parts of the world, they will bind together based off of their language. So we had like the Paraguay students like hanging around a lot with the Spanish kids because they both speak Spanish. And then the Italians, if there's a majority of them, they would all like be together and then they would exclude the Paraguay students. So what I would do to force, yes, the word is force, to force interaction. And by the end of the class, they actually did become good friends and they were asking each other questions about like their home country and things like that. Equity stick. So you write everyone's name on a stick. And based off of that, each day I would move them around. I would group them this way. I would pair them that way. I would um, mix up the groups and the seeing plan. And sometimes, to be honest with you, I mean, I know they're equity sticks and it's meant to be random. If I pulled out like two Italians and they were like best friends, I'd be like, just put that back. And then I just took out another one. Yeah. But to them,
Yeah,
obviously, it looks like it's completely random, but it's not. Um, yeah.
well, I think that's a really valid point. And we had, this summer we're going to have around to 20 students in a class for your Beyond English. So it's, three or four more than we had last summer. So if there is a lot of pairing and chattiness that we don't like, yeah, control the space. Because I find students sometimes, even adults as well, we have this idea that that chair's my chair. I sit, and it's like, no, 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 no. You sit where you're put because then if you don't like an interaction pattern, move people around and you'll develop new interaction patterns. And, as Tenny says, it's sort of diplomatic, a sort of corrupted diplomacy is an effective strategy. Yeah, definitely. Um, with those sticks as well, has anyone ever used them for spotlighting when you want a question or a suggestion? And has anyone used them before? No? No?
When
Okay.
when 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 I want a suggestion and no one's saying anything, I'm like, I'm gonna get out the sticks if no one talks.
Yeah.
And then they do if I call out their name, it's like I call out their name and then they suddenly have something to say. But before no one wants to raise their hand, but they all have something interesting to say. You just need some encouragement sometimes, especially to stop the same people always talking as well. And then people just kind of sitting back and not contributing anything because it's like the same people contribute and so they think they can get away with not saying anything. Yeah, that's
Yeah, definitely. Pia, was you going to say something? You sort of.
I was just going to ask for the definition of spotlighting, but I think it's just similar to cold calling, isn't it? So you're just picking someone out and just saying, "Oh." Sometimes cold calling can be a behaviour management tactic, just to
Yeah,
say, "Oh, okay." If they were talking, then just say, "Oh, can you answer this?" And then that sort of makes them think, "Oh no, I can't. I can't do both. I've got to do one." And you hope they kind of realign themselves.
definitely. And I think the other benefit of like spotlighting, cold calling, using the equity sticks is that you're creating a culture where you're normalizing, hey, you are participating in this class. You will absolutely be expected to contribute. And then, as you say, it raises engagement and awareness because the kid thinks, I don't want my name to get called out and I've not been following. And then I'm going to look like an idiot when the teacher finally calls my name. So I think it keeps everyone engaged and it stops people dominating, I think. Yeah, definitely. Um,
I, I think at the end of the day, we have to. I was talking to So how do you pronounce your name again?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. We didn't get to cover this point, but I think at the end of the day, as teachers, we have to be on the ball all the time. It's like you have to be constantly the whole hour, an hour and a half, focused on everything that's going around in the classroom, for example. When it comes to students who are not paying attention or who, what I do sometimes is I'll say, for example, okay, Miguel, so what did Juan say just now? What was the question? And that will make me think twice afterwards, oh, I better pay attention now. So I mean, I think it's just about constantly being focused on what's happening in the classroom. But that's how I see it.
Absolutely. And I think actually that sort of brings us to the final example of bullying. Laura, I actually agree with what you said. Could you share what you said with your policy on any sort of form of bullying?
Yeah, so for me, I don't tolerate it at all. And obviously it is hard to observe everything all the time, but if you do pick up on it, I speak to the students straight away, obviously on their own, either after the class or maybe pull them to one side and try and find out what's going on, just try and understand. Because sometimes I'm not making excuses, but maybe there's just been a misunderstanding or a miscommunication, so you can like talk it out like a therapy session. Or if it is something very, very serious, then I would pass it on to the DOS or the center manager.
Yeah. And also beyond that, I've had incidences before where like there was this really lovely boy from Turkey and he was gay and he was like 15, 16. And some of the Italian boys were, just being horrible to him basically. And he didn't really mention it to the teacher in the class, but then the teacher noticed it and the teacher spoke to the boys and then the teacher left it there. But then I kind of investigated and found that this boy, not only was he getting grief in class, but in the activities and in the excursions, people were also making remarks. And this is where I think sometimes teachers forget that anything that happens, you need to give that information to the DOS because if the DOS speaks to the excursion manager or the activities manager and says, yeah, I've actually heard that these boys have been picked. Imagine if you're getting grief in class, grief in activities, that's awful. But if we're not sharing information between academics, activities, excursions, we don't really know if it's bullying or, as Laura said, it's just a foolish little misunderstanding or whatever. So, yeah, absolutely zero tolerance. And I think following up everything is really important, even if that's just forwarding it to your DOS. But then, your DOS can take it on. But yeah, absolutely zero tolerance. We really need to stop things growing before they become a problem. Um, Moving on to the next slide, classroom management, structure and routines. I think this is an area where sometimes teachers struggle and it really affects the success of a program. Lack of clear rules or expectations, inconsistent enforcement of rules. Some teachers are super laid back, others are incredibly strict and at times almost aggressive, and you're kind of like, man, it's not a prison camp, it's a summer camp. Like if the kids are laughing and joking in class, it's a good thing. Poor transitions and unclear procedures for when classes start and end. Um, Laura and I sort of thought of five basic rules for what we think every class should have. Could you, in the chat box, guys, just write a couple of rules that you would impose in your classroom? No talking, feels outside, no phones, yeah, respect each other. Taniela, I thought your rule was just the word red, but I realized that you typed that for the previous activity. Um,
Yeah.
no phones, explanation for listen. Mm. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, expectations on the board at the start of the lesson, celebrating mistakes, no phones. Um, so yeah, basically, our five rules really are, I'll just write them down here so I don't forget, is be on time as you know, some of our students have an incredibly fluid concept of time. 9 o'clock is 9 o'clock. I'm sorry, I don't understand why. You will also come up against group leaders who, you'll say your students are late, and they'll go, it's 5 minutes. Well, it still disrupts the rest of the class. So even if it's not necessarily the student's fault, again, you go to your DOS and you say, this group arrive late all the time and it's unacceptable. Can you give me some support with this? So yeah, be on time,
Yeah, so can I just
listen.
say something there? You see,
Yeah,
the problem with that also is a cultural thing because, as you probably know yourself, the Spanish and Italian, it's almost accepted to be late. People come to work late, 5, 10 minutes. It's like
absolutely.
it's a normal thing for them. Of
Yeah, yeah,
course, it's not for us, but that's kind of a difficult one sometimes.
But
absolutely. And this is where you have to kind of be quite anal and just, my girlfriend's Colombian. Her like it is impossible for her to be anywhere at the time she's expected to
Mm,
be. But
mm,
it's a war that I never give up on, and I
yeah.
always try to say, look, 9 o'clock's 9 o'clock. The students is the same thing, as you say, even if it's cultural, we have to explain it affects all the other students, it affects the start of the class, and it just wastes everyone's time, doesn't it, if they're late? Um, so yeah, we've got be on time, listen, respect everyone in class, you know, particularly if a student's doing a presentation or sharing something and the others are talking over them. I think that that's unacceptable. Try to avoid using your L1, okay? Um, I don't know if any of you, what your views are on first languages in classrooms. I know some teachers think that any form of translation is terrible. Others argue that it can be a useful tool. Does anyone have any views on that debate?
I think it could be useful sometimes, especially with lower levels of students, when sometimes they're trying to say something and then they feel frustrated because they can't give you the message they want. And then sometimes say, yeah, like go and translate it, or maybe their friends can translate it for them and they can help you like get the message. It's fine. It's just another language. It's not something.
It's also a cultural thing because, for example, the Asians, they don't speak much anyway, and they're all the time with their phones. Okay, I would try to avoid using phones in the first place. But you imagine, for example, having a 12-year-old Chinese boy who's very shy and has a really low level. It's going to be very, very difficult for him to understand anything, I mean, I don't like using one language as a rule, but I suppose there are exceptions, I guess.
The thing is, I think, as Mariana pointed out, if it's inter-peer teaching where one student translates a word for their friend, for me, I don't mind that, to be honest with you. I think it's problematic if the teacher does it because our
Yeah.
classrooms are
Mm.
not mono, like they're not, there's not one language. So unless you can speak Chinese, Spanish, Italian, Arabic, so on and so forth, if you can't translate one word in everyone's language, it's not fair if you just translate it in Greek or Spanish or Italian. However, if a student says to his friend, like, ¿qué quieres decir? Eso, vale, pues es eso, okay. And then the friend says it, I don't see a problem with that, to be honest. So the rule I've phrased it as is avoid using your L1, but you know, you don't need to be super strict with it. Um, just monitor it. If it becomes excessive, okay, and then participate. We spoke about before how do we keep people on topic and stuff like that. And a big part of that is getting the students to be invested in the class, engaging them, feeling as though they're producing something valuable. And Pia, I like your suggestion of writing out the objective of the class at the beginning on the board because then the students understand that it's meaningful. Okay, at the end of today, I'm going to know that. Brilliant. Um, nice and clear. Um, for starting or ending lessons, what are your views on starting a lesson, guys? Like, let's say your class starts at 9 o'clock. What are we doing? Like,
Maybe
mean,
some
like,
quick warm-up games, maybe. Just quick 5-10 minute warm-up games. Could be introductions. It could be favorite things, favorite color, favorite foods. Just simple physical games, brief games, maybe.
yeah,
also,
yeah.
like when I take oh no, sorry, go on, Pierre. Sorry.
Oh, it was just for the following days. So for the first day, you wouldn't have anything to have a retrieval activity on, but for the days after, we just recap what we did yesterday, just to make sure that they keep it fresh, and maybe they can recycle some of the stuff that they learned the previous day into today, and they might feel more confident to speak if they're using stuff that they learned yesterday. So that's always good at the start, just to warm everybody up.
Yeah,
I always like to, for example, just ask them stuff like, "Oh, what did you do yesterday?" Okay, let's remind what it's a good way to practice the past tenses, for example, past simple, whatever. It's a bit of grammar there, and also it gets them to remember what they did the day before.
hey, yeah. Laura, what was you gonna say?
When you're doing when I do the register, I put like on a scale 1 to 10 on the board. So like, how are you feeling today? Or, how good was activities or something like that. So when they call out the name, they have to say the number that they're feeling on the emotional chart and explain why as well. Just a few seconds, nothing too detailed, but yeah.
And I actually am a big believer. I can't remember what the theory is called now, but I think it's something like I was reading about the theory of the importance of repetition and procedure and consistency in classes. And I think that actually, as all of you pointed out, starting the class in the same way each day, like that, because the students come in and they know, okay, first of all, I'm going to do this, then we're going to recycle a little bit of what we did yesterday, then we're going to do a little bit of an activation activity, and then we're gonna start learning, and my objective is there. Fantastic. Um, one thing that I really want us to avoid this summer, and it's something that like really upsets me, is when you walk in a class and it's 9:05 and the teacher's got their back to the classroom, faffing around on the laptop, trying to get their slides up, and all the kids are just kind of like sitting around chatting. And then at 9:10, the teacher kind of turns around looking a little bit sort of stressed and anxious, and then says, like, oh, quiet, quiet, guys, come on. And then they start the lesson. I don't understand why that happens, because your lesson plans are prepared for you, your slides are prepared for you, any tech issues you have are dealt with for you. So if you are unable to be in the class 5 minutes before it starts and get everything uploaded and ready to go, I don't know what you're doing, because the kids should not be sat around chatting for 10 minutes waiting for you to do something you should have done in 30 seconds before they entered the room. And as we spoke about affective factors like disinterest or frustration, that is precisely the kind of atmosphere where students get bored, restless, frustrated, and then you're fighting a losing battle for the rest of the lesson. So I think the procedure at the beginning and the end is crucial. Um, so yeah, those are our five sorts of rules. I think they're pretty clear. Um, now, this one, um, thought we could just do as a group activity. Time management, teacher-student relationship. Um, does anybody would like to share a situation in which they had any issues from the right-hand side? Lack of rapport, inability to motivate. Anyone? Jane, have you ever come across any of those issues where you've had a lack of rapport or struggling to motivate the students?
Yes. I had one student who just wouldn't engage with class. He wasn't silent. He would talk in L1, in a muttering in L1 all the time. And to begin with, I felt I was spending far too much time addressing him and going, no, speak English. And the others were then getting restless because I was talking to him all the time. So I then decided to ignore him, except when I was particularly calling on him to do something, which was better for a while because the whole class was more engaged. But then an incident came up because what he was saying, it was an L1 I couldn't understand. And he was winding up another student in the class. And I could tell that that was happening. But because my policy was to ignore him, I ignored him. And it then all kicked off. And I had to prevent a physical fight, which
Wow.
was a
Okay.
real way for me because he wound this other student up who came round the table to punch him, and they had to be separated. Um, and that was a real wake up for me because if someone in class is doing something they shouldn't, like muttering in L1 and winding another student up, you have to stop that. You can't ignore it. I was ignoring it because I had a policy about something else. You need both at the same time. It's difficult, but if you ignore a problem, it doesn't ever go away.
Yeah, but how would we? Would someone like to offer what they would do in that scenario? So you've got a student, they're constantly talking in their L1. It's now they're clearly antagonizing others in the class. How would we react to that? Does someone want to give us an example of what they might do? Mo, for example, what would you do?
Um, if someone was consistently chatting in L1, I think, how would I approach that? I think probably, I don't know, just emphasize why we're here, why we're doing it, and just say, I don't know, just kind of just try speak to them on a kind of real level almost and say, look, we're here, we're doing this. Yeah, maybe emphasize the benefits of being able to speak English, kind of, yeah, just say we can speak in L1 after. But yeah, for now, let's try push ourselves and encourage ourselves. Maybe even, I don't know, get a little scoreboard, some gold stars. And if you manage to get to the end of the class without using L1 the whole time, you get a gold star. And whoever wins the most stars at the end of, I don't know, each week gets a little toy or something.
I
Yeah,
think it's important to try to work out or to find out why that student is speaking in L1. That's the first thing. Is it because that student doesn't understand? Is it because that student's just not interested, is not motivated, bored, doesn't like the teacher, doesn't like the group? I think that's the first step. And once we establish that, then we can try to work out what to do next.
yeah, I think both of those strategies are very fat. I kind of feel like I'm a bit more of a hard ass now because what I was going to say was that
Mm.
I think that, yeah, definitely meritocracy and rewarding positive behavior is important. But what you said there, Manuel, we hear that a lot where the student might say, I don't like my teacher. And it's like, well, a certain degree of learner autonomy is fantastic, and we are learner centered. But some of the students we work with are spoiled and they come from very
A
high
lot.
income families. They're not accustomed to hearing the word no. They're not
Mm.
accustomed to being held
Maybe
accountable.
boundaries, maybe. Yeah.
And, and sometimes I think teachers don't use the support structure that they have. You've got your senior teacher there, you've got your DOS there, you've got your welfare team there, you've got that student's group leader. So I would operate a three strikes and out policy, whereby I say, hey, I've told you once, you're now impacting everyone in the class. That's one, bosh. If it happens again, two. And in the same class, if they do it again, three. And then you say to your DOS, come and collect
Mm.
Rodrigo de la Cruz. The DOS comes and collects them, gets them out of that situation. All the other learners can continue, and then the DOS can say, right, Miguel, what's the problem? If there is no problem and it's just poor behavior, then the DOS can say, right, you've got 15 minutes in my office to think about what you're doing. Are you bored? Yeah, fantastic. Is it more interesting being in there? Yeah. go back in there and, stop causing problems. If it continues, no problem. We take them back out, we call their group leader, and we say,
Definitely. Mm.
if this
Mm.
continues, you're not going on your trip. And if it continues and continues and continues, they go home.
That's why I always think that the very first class is the most important class.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
going to
First
make
impressions,
it's
right?
going
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
it's going to make or break the whole week. I would rather the students think, oh, let's let's find out what this teacher's like. I'd rather have that than just be their body. I'm there to do a job. Obviously, the idea is to interact with them and everything. But I like to make the rules clear from day one. And if we do that, it's going to be a lot better for the whole week, I think.
I agree. And I think, like Mo mentioned, and I've seen Teniola in action as well, um, we do want to be fun and engaging, and
Hmm.
absolutely what we're teaching is not, they're not sat there looking at grammar structures in a textbook. They are meant to be talking, and your classroom should be loud and fun, but also goes back to the inconsistency with rules. If on the first lesson you say, hey, if you keep on using your L1, you'll get 3 strikes and then you leave. If you don't do that, the kids are going to think, huh, this guy's an idiot. I'll do what I want.
Hmm.
And if, that's exactly what I would have thought when I was 15. So, if you're not establishing the rules that you've demonstrated, how on earth can you expect to have any form of control over your students? You won't,
Exactly.
you know?
Mm.
And there is,
Um,
can I just add something to that?
yeah,
There is, I think, very generally an issue around that, regardless of individual students' behavior, which is that almost all the students are just not used to lessons like the ones we give.
yeah.
They're used to sitting down and listening and writing things down and looking at the board and the teacher doing all the talking. And that's not what we do. So they tend to think, oh, these are not real lessons. These are just fun. These are messing about lessons. And of course they're not. So that's always going to be an issue because they're not with us for that long. And maybe they've got used to it by the end, but at the beginning they're certainly not. So setting out how we are doing things and what we will not tolerate is important, but it's something that we do have to continually deal with. Yes.
And I think another key thing is that, and obviously you don't want to stereotype based on nationality, but I think, let's say, for example, you've got like a student from Japan who's quite shy, quite reserved, not producing much, in class discussions. Then you've got, a rowdy Italian kid that's, perhaps chatting too much. It's where you can use your sticks or just pair. Like if you strategically place the Italian kid with the Japanese kid, they'll kind of rub off on each other, and you'll find a happy medium where the Italian kid will reduce his energy a little bit, and then that will go to the Japanese student, and then between the two of them, they kind of will find a happy medium, I find.
Yeah, I just wanted to say between the 3 strikes, but perhaps the first between the second and the third strike, it's always great to sort of do a managed move. So just say, right, okay, we're going to get up now, we're going to switch around, and we're
Yeah.
going to start and see if the
Mm.
dynamics change. That's quite a way to do it
Good point. Yeah, I agree.
secretly almost, because everybody's moving. So you're not necessarily saying, right, you stand up, you move across the room, because often they quite like the bravado of that, being told to stand up and everybody gets to see them and they get to move. And if you move all of the students, although it can be initially disrupting for a little bit, it can help sort of reset the expectation again. We've all moved, we're all going to try again now. Although sometimes I do feel sorry for the ones that are probably really enjoying who they're sat next to. But if it builds the whole class, we're a team at the end of the day, and that's
So, yeah.
how it will work. But that's sometimes what I do before the third strike, because you want them in there. Essentially, you want them to be in the lesson as much as possible.
Fantastic idea, yeah. I've
I like the
actually
idea.
making
Yes, yes.
slides. Sorry, Mazin?
I was just saying I like the idea of shuffling around the classroom definitely before any final strike move. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I think that's great because then also, but again, this is where that consistency comes in because also I find students are quite good policing one another because if they know this pattern and they're enjoying, like you said, Pia, where they are, if the student is being disruptive and they know, right, look, in a minute, we're all going to have to move around, they will probably say to the other student, can you just like relax, mate? Because like I'm not sitting, I don't want to move because of you. So can you stop it? And often if you're not getting the attention from the students and you're not, showing off and people thinking, oh, what a little rebel, you're just an annoyance. Generally the behavior improves, I find. Because a lot of it is just seeking attention, isn't it? Okay. Now moving on from there, I think that's really good points. Um, Jane, I think you'll probably recognize these slides from Easter that I made about differentiation. You are going to
Yeah.
have mixed level groups. It is a fact. Obviously, this presents a challenge. Um, and sometimes teachers get frustrated with mixed level groups, which I kind of understand. But the reason why there are mixed level groups is because obviously, in order for the whole enterprise to be financially viable, you have to have a certain amount of students per class. And obviously, this means you might have a B1 student that's in a B2 class because the B1 class was full. Or you might have a B2 student that's in a B1 class or a C1 class because their class was full. It's not ideal, but then if we made our classes smaller and the price of the product goes up, students wouldn't be able to afford it, or at least some of them wouldn't. So, as much as it's not ideal, it's just part of what we have to deal with, really. Um, so, here in these slides, I'll go through these quickly, but you can basically, you'll see these slides anyway, and you can read through at your own time. But differentiation by outcome, um, you know, if someone's finding something a bit easy, then remove some of the scaffolding for that person or that little group. And or if it's something that's too difficult, a bit more support, simplify the task. You can support different levels quite easily just by adapting what they're expected to produce. Scaffolding here is key. You talk about the proximal zone of development where it's not too difficult, not too hard, that sweet spot. Scaffolding is precisely the thing that gets you there. So whether it's giving them extra resources, writing things on the board to give them a framework to follow, whatever it may be, there's plenty of ways to scaffold to make it easier or harder. Differentiation by role as well. Some people like to pair strong or more advanced learners together and weaker learners together. I personally think it's good to have mixed level groups and they can allocate roles within themselves and govern themselves and support one another. Um, Differentiation by process as well. You know, ICQs and CCQs, I think, are something that we sometimes overlook how important they are because it's something you learn right at the beginning of your teaching career. You can sometimes forget how important your instructions and follow-up questions are. Yes, Pierre?
So, what was the acronym there?
So,
The
like your instruction checking questions, your
Right.
ICQ and your CCQs, like your comprehension checking questions. For example, for me, I find I'm terrible with my ICQs. When I was doing my Delta, I consistently got pulled up on it because I used to say things like, have a peep at this, and then give a
Ah,
reading. And then the
yeah.
students would be like, have a peep at this. And you don't notice you're doing it. Whereas what I should have said was, read this. A B1 student doesn't understand have a peep at. And I think we're all, or even sticking questions. When you ask two or three questions on the bounce without thinking about it, and then the student's there thinking, well, what question do I respond to? So I feel like this area, number 4, is really important for us to make things easier or harder. Laura, do you want to? Laura is our director of studies at Cheltenham, and she produced the Beyond English syllabus. Laura, would you like to explain the importance of 5 and 6 for us?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So yeah, tier tasks. Now, I think it's really good within the syllabus because we preempted this anyway. So let's just say you've got a class of a B1 students, but maybe they're slightly faster at working than some of the other students. The syllabus is for B1 with extension for B2. Okay, so if you've got a group of students that are working a little bit faster, there are some additional tasks that can be implemented for that group while the others are catching up. As well, I'd just like to point out the timings. I think they're very, very generous, okay? Because I've had to adapt the syllabus for all different types of teaching styles. So the timings do vary depending on your teacher style. If you can, say you're in a debate setting and you can encourage the students to develop their answer so that that activity, instead of lasting 10 minutes, lasts 15 minutes or maybe 20, because you're able to get more language out of them. That's absolutely fine. I've done, hopefully, to the best of my ability, I've over planned on the syllabus. So there should be enough activities, but there are extension ones for all levels from the A's to the C's. Okay. Yeah, Pia?
Just a question on in-class feedback. So are we, if it was written work, for example, is there time allotted for feedback, or are we sort of doing that as we go?
You mean the students giving the feedback?
Yes, so if I was to give feedback for students, so say if we'd done a written task, or maybe we'd written some sentences, if we were to go through it and potentially mark them together, is there time for that, or would you have a specific 10 minutes? This is feedback of how I thought everybody did today.
That's a good question. Generally, if there is anything like that, whether it's written or research, the next task is for them to deliver it back to the class anyway.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want to change it to the end of the class, that would be fine. But we do have the projects. So the mini feedback sessions after they've done the research or a reading exercise is in preparation for the projects that happen at the end of the lesson, or towards the end, sorry.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think what you was mentioning there, Pia, is that our approach is what you would call formative assessment. So we're kind of constantly giving the students feedback on what they're producing throughout the class in real time, but also I think the mini projects they do each day and then the projects at the end of each program give us the ability to give direct feedback, but then also they produce something that's also measured as well. Um,
Oh yeah, okay. So that's the summative bit at the end that you'd be giving the more formal feedback on, and the formative is just as we go, it will feel more natural. That makes sense. Yeah. Thank you.
yeah, and I think it's really important that the students, I think like Mo was saying earlier, like it is a summer course, and I think some teachers kind of forget that it is essentially an educational, cultural holiday for the kids. And so, yeah, it's structured and their poor behavior is not tolerated, but we should be nice to the kid. The kids should be leaving your classroom feeling good, feeling heard, having received praise, having produced English, having interacted. Because I've overheard teachers that are just like, no, it's not how you pronounce that. Repeat after me. And they're just doing drills. And you're like, what are you doing? And the kids are all sat there thinking, Jesus Christ, I paid like 3 grand for this. Like that's not what they signed up for. So gentle formative assessment, plenty of positivity. And I think number 6 here, Laura and I were discussing, is super important. circulating and providing real-time support, I don't know what you guys are like in class, but a lot of the teachers that we see that are like really great in class, they're not sat behind their desk on a chair. They're moving around because you do need to actually give real-time tailored support as people are doing tasks. Are you a
Is
walker,
it
Mazzy?
is it called, yeah, helicopter teaching, as they call it, helicopter, like a helicopter walking around?
Mhm.
Exactly, yeah. And the kids, again, this links into what Jane was saying, how the classroom is probably a bit different to what they're used to. The exercises are different, but also your presence as the teacher is different because, yeah, you're floating around, you're circulating, you're teaching at the point of need. And I think it really benefits the students. Um, Now, we'll move on from here, guys, because I don't want to keep you all longer than you need. But basically, the concept of reflective practice and all the CPD sessions that we're going to be doing over the summer follows this very simple cycle, really. Try something out, gather some data about it. The dog will help you with that by doing observations. And then we reflect on them as a team, what's working, what's not working. Hopefully we learn something, then you try something else. And the idea is that we've just got a constant loop of everyone learning from one another, all of us improving and developing our styles. Um, Now, I'm going to skip this part, so I don't want to keep you too long. Um, Laura, could you just give us one or two examples of projects before we go to the final slide, if possible, please?
Yes, certainly. So don't forget that each week has a set theme, okay? Every level, each week has a set theme. So, for example, in A1, the first week is learning about the world from volcanoes, rivers, mountains, continents. So each lesson has a mini project. So, for example, when they learn about volcanoes, they're going to make a volcano, okay? But then at the end of that first teaching week, they have the big project lesson. Okay. So, for example, in that first week for A1, they're going to be designing their own island in groups. Okay. Where they use the language and draw pictures from that week. And it's the same with the second week, where it's about learning about different cultures, whether it be from music, food. Okay. Each lesson for the last half an hour, there is a project that is associated with the lesson. So, like a music lesson, they're going to learn a dance. Okay. But then at the end of that week, we've asked them to create a mini documentary. Okay. Because maybe controversial, but I do believe A1s and A2s, they can speak a little bit, and doing a mini documentary in a group explaining everything that they've learned. Yeah, Mazine?
Yeah, just a quick question. So when it comes to picking a particular part of the world, when they're learning about the world, obviously they can't choose a culture that they're from. Like Turkish students shouldn't pick Turkey, the Italians or Spanish. Would you like force them to pick different cultures, or is it up to them, students, the project?
It should be based. So the second week, for example, for all levels, is slightly longer week than the first week. The first week is 4 sessions, so they should be able to do a project connecting the 4 lessons in that first week for their big project. The second week is slightly longer by 1 teaching day. Okay. So ideally, if they can choose 4 lessons that link and then create a project about what they've learned, because I've tried to be as international for cultures that are not within the lesson. Okay. So, for example, we're learning about Australian houses, also Sweden houses, and things like that. So I've tried my best ability to bring in different cultures that are not in the classroom. So you've got the opportunity for the students to share their culture, but then learn about other cultures, because it was supposed to be about exploring the world. Okay, so how they deliver the lesson, the project, the mini documentary, is down to what they feel comfortable with. Ideally, I would like it to include what they've learned and not just about themselves. Mazine, does that answer your question?
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's perfect.
The B1 and the B2. Yeah, okay. With the global issues, again, the first week we're asking to do the main project like in a David Attenborough style, because they are going to be learning about environmental issues, okay? And it's not just about recycling or pollution, but it's also about animals as well. And we thought that would be an interesting take, because David Attenborough, he's a legend. And doing something like that, we thought would be very interesting for them. And then the second week for the B1, because it is a mix, again, because it's a longer week, the first part of the week is like about AI, and the second one's more social, like mental health, health and lifestyle, controversy, and things like that, that they could do a United Nations style documentary. Okay. Okay. And then for the C1, because it is the business syllabus, that it's going to be a little bit harder. But the first week, because it's all about product branding, that they would reform, rebrand, and relaunch a product that wasn't successful in the past. And then for the second week, they're going to, because it's all about teamwork, team building, how to deal with constructive criticism in the real world, that they would be based on, it's the, oh, my pronunciation of her name's not great, the Jacinda Ardern project, the former Prime Minister of New Zealand. Did I pronounce her name correctly, Joe?
Jacinta.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry. So in this project, they produce like a short film that centers on the difference between the leadership and management, and how everything all works in together with working as a team. And it's a deep dive on what hopefully they've learned from that. Okay, so hour and a half for the lesson. 30 minutes of that is for mini projects that all lead towards, at the end of the particular week, for the big project, where we're hoping at least the students can bring into the big project 4 of the lessons that they've learned. Okay, does that make sense? I've gone through that very quickly. Any questions?
Okay. Well, thank you, Laura. Ole. Now, guys, I'm just going to quickly show you 1 or 2 things, and then we'll finish. Okay, because I don't want you to be wasting all your Saturday. Well, not wasting your Saturday, but it's Saturday. Now, just so you know what to expect, previously things have been a bit strange in the first day or 2. Teachers kind of are like, I don't really know what to do. The students aren't on campus. It can kind of be a bit strange because lots is happening, and you're kind of there, just like, what's going on. So basically, your first couple of days are going to look like this. So you arrive, meet the team, settle in. Your DOS will tell you, okay, tomorrow the plan is da, 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 da. Nice and easy. Day 1, you do your Douze-Monde induction with your center manager. You learn about our values, what our vision is, what our goals are. Then you do role-specific training, which in your case will be with your DOS. You then get allocated your class. So they'll say, all right, Mazid, you're doing B2 and whatever. This is your classroom. Mazin can then check the technology in his classroom. He gets his teacher's box with all the materials he needs for delivering the classes. He decorates his classroom with the materials that we give. And then he gets a brief from his DOS. All right, good work today, everyone. Tomorrow the plan is blah, 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 blah. Day two, the DOS will check your classroom because some teachers have very interesting concepts of what decorating a classroom means. Some are better at decorating than others, and obviously you want all of them to look nice. And then it's lesson planning. As we spoke about last week, we've made it as easy as is possible for someone to follow the lessons that Laura has produced. So really, this lesson planning session, you have about 3 or 4 hours, right? You should prepare at least 1 week of lessons, if not two, in that time, because you're reading a one-page lesson plan and your slides are prepared for you. So I don't really feel that anyone should be spending much more time than that. You'll then have a CPD session just to go over a few things that might pop up during the first couple of days of the course. And then your DOS will have a check-in with you. You know, Pia, how are you? What lessons have you prepared? What have you read through? What are you teaching tomorrow? Yeah, okay. Have you got your list of materials that the senior teacher will print for you? Yeah, thank you very much. Do you need anything? No? Beautiful. Ciao, ciao. And then um, we have the first day of class. Meeting in the morning, induction ceremony, icebreakers, and then you do your first lesson. Okay? So this will be your first 3 days on site. Okay. Now,
Um,
oh,
hello.
hello, Mo. Are you
Um,
non-res?
pardon?
Was you going to say that you're a non-residential teacher, or
Yes, I am a non-residential teacher, but I'm sure that you're about to cover this. But what actual date is this? So what date is arrivals, or as I'm not staying there, would I be there on day one?
yeah?
What's the
So,
official kind of kickoff date?
well, our industry is a very interesting one in that we have various schools with various different start dates. So instead of writing a specific date, what I've done is just done it like this. So for you as a non-res, you would the students arrive on day two. So for example, in rugby, if I'm not mistaken, the first day, the arrivals, this is the 2nd of July. So the teachers would arrive on the 1st of July. This is off the top of my head because we've got
Oh,
so many
good.
different schools, but basically it's the day before the students arrive, you're on site. The day the students arrive, you're prepping your lessons because obviously the kids are coming in from all over the world and the welfare team is settling them in. And then on day three, that's the first day of the course where you meet the lovely little cherubs that you'll be teaching for 2 weeks. Okay. Um, Now this is just a little plan to give you an idea of how your mornings will look. This is how I've instructed the DOSes to conduct their morning meeting. So if you're non-res or residential, let's say you've had your breakfast, 8:25, you're in the DOS's office for a very brief 15-minute, if that, meeting. Quick discussion, any issues from the previous day or anything that's newsworthy or important to share. A reminder if it's an excursion mania day or if you need to do report cards at the end of towards the end of the course or projects, whatever it may be, just a reminder there. Announce who's being observed, because I think it's always nice to let the teacher know, hey, tomorrow I'm going to observe you. And then if there's individual issues, the teacher can just say, hey, can I talk to you at the end? Because it used to really annoy me when I was a teacher and teachers would be moaning to the DOS about stuff. And you're sitting there like, why am I listening to this? This isn't relevant to me. So once the short meeting is done, 8:55, you're in your class, slides up, ready to go. That's what your morning should look like. Okay. There's only one 15-minute meeting per day, so it's really not too much time for you all. Uh, I was feeling a bit nerdy the other day, so I thought I'd make a pie chart of what your 2 weeks looks like, how your time is distributed. Um, so as you can see here, um, about 63% of what you're doing is teaching in class. 5% of your contracted hours are just like excess, like they're left for things like if you need to do report cards or whatever. We've, we'll give you about 11% of your time is for planning lessons, although all the slides are prepared for you and everything's outlined very clearly for you. The CPD sessions, I don't want you to feel like they're a chore. So it's literally just one brief one in week one. And then on the reset day, in between programs, we do another one. Okay. Um, your morning meetings represent 3.5% as well, very brief. The excursion mania classes, for those of you that are not sure about those, that's you basically do 2 days of teaching and then all the kids go on their excursion and you have a day off. So the day before their excursion, you do a very short 50-minute session with them, just doing a presentation that I've prepared for you, letting them know where they're going, and then they do a little quiz. That represents about 4% of your time. Paid break times are 10%, just happy days. And yeah, that basically shows you what you'll be doing in a 2-week program. Okay. Um, any questions before we finish?
Yeah, just a quick question, Joe. The slides, I've gone through the lesson plans at the moment. I'm just going through them now just to like pre-read them as it were, pre-prepare. And it's the link at the moment. Is it going to be just a link or are there going to be actual slides like PPTs prepared separately, like on a flash drive or whatever, or a soft file?
Slides for
The
the
slide.
Beyond English program,
Yeah,
Laura?
It's just the link at the moment, but if you want
the
it,
Canvas.
yeah, if you want them downloaded onto a PDF, like I've done for the flashcards, I can do that.
Well,
Is
yeah,
that,
that's fine. Let's just
yeah?
check. Yeah, either's fine. Yep, we'll see how it.
Sorry?
Yeah, either's fine. Either's fine. It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. I just thought the link would be okay. But if people prefer, I can do, maybe I should just do it in as a precaution, download
Just in case,
PDFs.
possibly.
Yeah, I could do that, no problem.
Yeah,
I
cool.
don't know if you remember, Jane, but I downloaded all the lesson plans I made in PDFs, and then everyone asked me for links instead of PDFs. So,
Yeah.
like, it is. But what we can do is we can always offer both, and happy days. Any other questions, guys? Or yes, Pierre?
It was just like dress code uniform. Do you have a set like shirt, t-shirt sometimes?
Yeah. So with the dress code, we do give all staff like a Doosman hoodie and a Doosman t-shirt. However, you don't have to wear it every day in class.
Okay.
It's just dressing as you would dress, casually, basically. But anything that's kind of exposes a lot, this is obviously inappropriate. Um, like I have once or twice had to say to staff, like, you're wearing a see-through top, probably not a good idea. Like, so, and then when we have our ceremonies, we do like the teachers to wear their t-shirt or their hoodie so that in the photos, all our staff are in blue. And but yeah, other than that, it's just comfortable, casual clothing in class, and just nothing too revealing, I guess.
Inappropriate.
Just professional, casual. That's fine. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Like I was watching yesterday, actually, the film Notting Hill, and there's that scene in it where his flatmate is wearing t-shirts for a date, and it's like, you're the most beautiful person I've ever seen, and then he turns round and it's got something really inappropriate on the back. Just avoiding t-shirts like those are the goal, really. Um, any other questions before we finish, guys? No? Okay.
So,
Oh, yep.
so I have received like a timetable of how it goes, but do we get individual timetables, or are we just working off the timetable we've already been sent?
Yeah, you'd just be working from your program timetable, really, because everyone teaching will be the same. So you have your 3 hours in the morning, a 30-minute break, and then same again in the afternoon. So that's kind of why the morning is useful for the DOS, a quick cup of tea and a meeting with the DOS where they just say, right, guys, so today is blah, 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 blah. And then, you don't really need to worry too much about anything.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, no problem. So guys, I'll get Robin to send the slides to you. And if you've got a moment once you receive them to fill out the type form, it'd be really good because I kind of want to, if you guys feel that these sorts of sessions aren't useful, then we don't have to do them. But if we feel like they are useful, then I'll continue. But unless people fill out the type form, I don't really know how everyone feels. It is anonymous as well, so no dramas. But right, thank you very much for your time, everyone. Um, I'll see you all soon, I guess. We're a couple of weeks away, which is terrifying and wonderful at the same time. So yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Joe. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You
Bye.
guys.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye, guys. Laura, I'll give you a text, okay?
Yeah, no worries. Okay, thanks, Joe. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.